Now, lastly for you guys, what we have is something that I've been itching to talk about for a little bit. We're going to give a good 5 minutes to this. TJ Dillashaw, obviously, as you guys know by now, was popped for EPO, the same drug that Lance Armstrong used. That is usually used by marathon runners and guys that are obviously cyclists and guys that just want superhuman endurance. Now, when you're in combat sports, you're fighting from 15, and in the case of a champion, 25 minutes fight. You don't need what Lance Armstrong used to bike for 6 to 8 hours every single day for 16 days straight. It helps with recovery. It helps with, obviously, your cardio. And cardio helps with your focus. If when your cardio is lower, your focus goes down and your guard goes down.
Let me tell you, from just being in gyms and stuff like that, being tired is probably one of the biggest issues that you might have while fighting or sparring or whatever the case might be. Just because, I mean, regardless of how much technique you have and so forth, experience, it all gets diminished significantly when you gas out. You just become a completely different person. So, I mean, I can totally get why he would want the increased cardio. I totally get why he would want the increased recovery. And then I heard on other podcasts the argument that it kind of tied down. Now, again, we can speculate how long he's been taking it, how far back we can date his use of that substance. We don't know that. I don't want to speculate. But it makes sense that he used it while he was cutting down to 125, right?
Yep.
His body's diminished, sucked out. He can't consume as many calories. So he's broken down. He needs something to help him recover better. Make sense?
It's pretty sketchy that Cody Garbrandt called him out, I think it was last year, and mentioned about EPO. He's like, oh, you still using that EPO? And TJ Dillashaw said some kind of dismissive comment because it's Twitter.
Right.
But
it's funny that it kind of was out there before it was out there.
There are fighters that know other people that are using, and they just don't snitch.
And well, they were teammates, right? He was saying, I think that Cody was saying that TJ kind of taught everybody how to do steroids pretty much, or like he was like teaching people in the gym and stuff. I gotta tell you, usually from what I've seen, it's kind of like, especially if you're competing with someone and you're on the same team and you're getting ready for fights and all that stuff, you would most likely know if the person's taking something.
And it's what bothers me is that this is a combat sport. This isn't like basketball or football or whether it be American football or traditional football. When you're playing any sport that's not combat sport, let me tell you, like, you're using the ball to dominate. Whereas in combat sports, it's the literal imposition of will. It's your literal... What happens when you start doping in sport in general is you're cheating the game. But when you're cheating an opponent that you're trying to hurt physically, maim, knock out, dismember, doesn't matter. It takes a certain level of lack of confidence and insecurity to say, you know what? Despite the rules, despite me getting banned for 2 years and risking everything in my legacy, it's worth cheating.
Yeah. It definitely...
I hope every fighter on the roster uses this as a cautionary tale. They don't care if you're a champion or if it's your first fight in the UFC.
Yeah.
There's no place for cheating in this sport. There just isn't.
Yeah.
I feel so passionately about it because people are putting their lives on the line. We've seen CTE rising with people, and it comes from repeated head trauma. Well, why not make myself more of an efficient monster if I'm going to dope and just throw more punches because I'm not getting tired?
Yeah.
It's like being able to spam the controller on your PS4 or your Xbox controller and just smash the buttons because it doesn't matter. It's on an easy difficulty. You're cheating the game. You're cheating yourself. You're cheating your opponent, and you're also playing a sport. You're participating in a sport where you're supposed to hurt your opponent. I would be disgusted. And as Henry Cejudo said, like he said, he's like, I would never grant him a rematch. Why would you?
Yeah.
And I just can't get behind it. It's some snake behavior.
It is.
Pun intended.
Everything. I just want to second everything you said, and I think the repercussions in martial arts are much, much bigger than they would be in any other sport, because in those sports you use a ball, you get scored on, you lose, whatever, you can go home, your still health is fine and all that stuff. In martial arts, obviously, that's not the case. You can get brain trauma, etc., etc., and that's much bigger.
It's cheating. It's horrible, and it's no better or worse than the guy who was putting plaster in his gloves and then fighting guys
Sure.
and ended that guy's career in boxing.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're putting physical changes physically, or if you're putting something in your own body so you perform better. You need to be able to put in the hours where you know that you earned everything naturally and clean, and to know that people are coming in there and there's EPO and now people, oh, I know other people that are. Let's just clean the sport out, because there's enough of people. If UFC. Right? If UFC's sitting here and saying, you know, we don't want any of these TRT or any of this or any of that, and like obviously all the traditional steroids, and EPO somehow not being tested, that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it's also interesting though, when you think of it from a different perspective on the other side of it, it's like it's hard for you to be like, oh, screw the UFC, and then still be a fan of other promotions that don't test for this stuff.
Yeah.
That's also
That's
another
hypocritical a little bit.
That's another interesting
Yeah.
little tidbit to it, because a lot of guys are going over there because they can just get juice to the gills.
Yeah, I think it's the idea that now we know they're being so strict about testing in the UFC that if somebody does get caught, we assume that nobody else is kind of doing it. So maybe I think that's why we're getting that, because I honestly think that people don't really care. If we knew for a fact that everybody was doping, people would be just like, meh.
That's their health. And you know, Marlon Moraes weighed in on this, and he was asked about his opinion on TJ Dillashaw, because that was the champion of the 135 division, and all he was saying was, it's embarrassing for our champion 135 to go down a weight class and lose and represent and be, because he was representing
Right.
all of us. He's like, that's my biggest problem. If he's like, if TJ want. Interestingly, a fellow competitor. It goes against what I was just saying before, but this just shows you how complex this issue is. He was like, I don't care if you cheat. Go ahead. You're only hurting yourself later on in life.
For sure.
I'm going to beat you regardless. You can go ahead and do whatever you want. And it comes to show you that even some of these competitors, they find out after the fact that these guys are cheating, and they're not even really that upset about their well-being. What if it was me in the cage, like blah, blah, blah. They're sitting there being like, you're just hurting yourself.
Yeah.
Which is the fact. But if he went and hurt you and caused irreparable damage,
Maybe
now
you
he's just not hurting. Your tune might change a little bit.
Exactly. I think so. But let's not bash TJ all the way. I mean, he deserves some bashing.
I mean, at the end of the day, Dominic Cruz also did follow up and say we're probably going to see a better TJ Dillashaw in a couple years when his suspension is over, because he's going to want to prove a lot to the world.
He's gonna have to overcome a huge mountain right now. Climb that mountain of insecurity, the insecurity that's gonna come with all those things, and being away for 2 years. He's what, 34 now? I think I checked his age, 33 or 34. So it's it's difficult. It's difficult. It's a difficult situation for him. But I think that we're still gonna see him after those 2 years. But let's see if he's still gonna be relevant then.
Very interested to see how this all pans out.
Yeah.